Hello everyone and welcome back to DroidCon Berlin 2025. I'm here with James and I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Zach. My name is James. I'm a freelance software dev with nearly a decade experience. Worked on loads of different cool projects over the last few years. And yeah, happy to be here in DroidCon as always.
And of course, you're giving two talks during this, one focusing on cutting Gradle build times and another on finding a work-life balance as a developer, which is obviously a very important topic for everyone. So in terms of Gradle build times, in terms of faster feedback, every Android developer knows the pains of slow build times, I think increasingly so. I definitely miss the old days of Android development. What are some kind of quick tips that you have for kind of optimizing that build time? It's quite an open question, but if you had to do one thing as a developer, what would it be?
The one thing as a dev that I would basically I technically fire into every single project where I come onto is 4 Gradle properties. One to increase the heap memory, the parallel modules, and the caching. So these are Gradle properties, flags, and arguments that you can add in. Only takes a few seconds, and it tends to reduce it by at least about 20% straight off the bat. And that's even on new projects. And it's not even in the base at the moment. So Gradle is looking into maybe adding that in now by the next few releases.
Fingers crossed, because
Hope so.
that easy of a performance boost is kind of...
Yeah, but the thing is, I YOLO it in.
Yeah, why not?
And,
just throw it in and see what
It works
happens.
on nearly every project that I cut down about a minute at least. So, yeah.
In your talk, you also compare Groovy and Kotlin DSL. What were some surprises from those comparisons that you saw?
Well, I didn't do any speed research beforehand. For me, it was just like, okay, Groovy's kind of on the way. Kotlin's being more mainstream, and it brings its advantages. Let's do a migration. But I noticed straight afterwards that the build times and the pipeline times were slowed down by a minute, which was kind of strange. I had the opposite expectation. So after doing some research, then we found out no, it's actually happens to quite a lot of people that Kotlin for Groovy has overhead. It needs to compile the Kotlin files. But you have that advantage in the files that when you're doing the configurations, but you'll have the deficit of that the build times take longer. But it's only marginal, and it doesn't happen to everyone. So I had 3 migrations, 2 of which were slowed down.
It really is a case-by-case basis. And probably in most cases, the positives outweigh that small overhead.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I would only recommend I wouldn't recommend migrating from Kotlin DSL to Groovy.
Yeah.
But if you're still in Groovy and you have poor build times, it will get even slower again afterwards. So if you're looking to improve on build times and you're still using Groovy, it might be better off just sticking to Groovy until you have everything else cut down.
So try and get your performance improvements done first and then migrate is a good option. On the CI side of things, you mention steps to increase parallel execution. Do you have a kind of practical example of doing that or how that improved things?
Well, I normally try to show that through an image. So, for example, when you have stages in your pipeline, they run sequentially, so they run after another. But the jobs inside it run in parallel. But people like to break it up because it's nice to see on the UI. You'll have, for example, jobs that do check documentation. You'll have a stage that does SonarQube. You'll have a stage that does linters. You have a stage that does unit tests. But it makes less sense to do that because they're all executing one after each other, and you could execute them in parallel by combining and collapsing the stages so that it all runs in parallel. Mm-hmm. That way then, in one case, we had 6 stages, and we collapsed it down into 2, and through that, our build pipeline time went from 12 minutes to 6.
Right.
All the jobs were being executed anyway. It's just they were executed in 2 stages rather than 6.
Definitely something that a lot of people need to take a look at and realize that they don't have to run.
It's definitely one of those ones that is continuously overlooked.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So outside of the property changes, which, as we mentioned, make a good improvement, is there, if a developer was to do one more thing to improve their build times, what would that be?
I would say 2, so keeping all your tools up to date. So, for example, Java, Kotlin, AGP, which is kind of, a good idea to do so anyway. But upgrading your hardware. I mean, like I myself, I'm running on maybe a 6-year-old MacBook, but it's still doing its job well. But if I upgraded now, that would cut my build times down by half again.
Yeah.
And the argumentation is always missing. Well, I can't really, shouldn't fork out the money for it. But if we do the calculation, if you're doing 10 builds a day and it takes 5 minutes, that's 50 minutes a day that's just costing you. That's 16 plus hours a month. And if you were to calculate your hourly rate at 50 euro an hour, which is actually quite small for here in Germany, that's 800 euro. So that means you're wasting 800 euro with your time every month,
Yeah.
which you could save by simply upgrading your hardware.
I think as well, particularly when Apple brought out Apple Silicon, there was this was the exact argument that we had to get new laptops, because I genuinely, when you start to compound that time, it can be a massive amount of time wasted.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And people don't realize, because when it's so small, people sit there and wait, and that's the issue with the Gradle build times. If it takes too long and you don't want a context switch, you basically just sit there and wait.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
So there you have it. If you're an Android developer and you feel like you need a new laptop, that's your justification. Go to your manager and try and get an upgrade. But genuinely, yeah, I think it's important thing to keep the hardware as up to date as financially possible. So your other talk takes a very different thing. We go from a very technical talk into that sort of work-life balance and very important topic. You've made the shift from full-time employment to freelancing. How has that kind of how's that adjustment been, for that shift for you?
Very hard, because as a dev, you can kind of you don't necessarily have to be very sociable. You can kind of keep yourself and work on your code. But as a freelancer, you're not just doing your dev work, you're doing 6 other jobs on top. So you're doing your own marketing, you're doing your own sales, you're doing your own write-ups. You really have to sell yourself. So communication becomes a massive point. However, because you're forced to improve your communication skills, this will help as a regular dev anyway, But yeah, that was definitely the hardest shift, which is because you're trying to do 40 hours of dev work, and then you have maybe 10, 15 hours on top for like your, can't think of the English word, Buchhaltung, your accounting, and things like that. So yeah, all these little things come in on top then,
So I freelanced for maybe 6 or 7 years early in my career, and yeah, I don't remember that side of it too fondly. I think I was not a good accountant, I think is the simple way to put it. And another thing that I always struggled with was the blur between work and then personal time, and feeling like, oh, I could just do another hour to just get stuff done. How have you kind of worked on that, set boundaries? Is there any advice for any other freelancers out there?
Yeah, so I have advice, but I don't necessarily follow it. But I know this advice does help others. I don't have the issue. I'm kind of blessed that way, thankfully. I have my own office, so having a separated office helps. Having a separated domain where you can work helps, not just for the quietness, but to allow you to step away. It's like when you're in work mode, when you're not in work mode. If it's in a sitting room where you're going to be spending the evening as well, then it's very hard to separate your work and life. You physically have to have a separation and mentally have a separation, like wearing specific clothes while you're working, getting changed when you're done. Things like this can really, really help you mentally get out of the work. Me personally, I work way too much. I work like about 16 hours, but I have a very tacked schedule because my private time is also very important to me, like spending time with the wife and kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have my own office. It's been working pretty well for me the last few years. So
Good.
Yeah, I think it's a more individual case. Anytime anyone has questions like how can I help, I have to look at their situation and give them pointers that way.
And obviously, community is important to you. You're here at droidcon. You've been doing some silly things with badges. I'll zoom in on that. I was unaware of this, and it genuinely took me hours to see that anyone was wearing them. So I'm very embarrassed by that. But how have you found that your involvement with the community has helped you kind of grow your career, grow personally? What's been good there?
Definitely from the start out. So I didn't start out as an Android dev. I started out as a full stack dev, and I used to travel 4 hours a day by train. So the open source community helped me do Android development. And I didn't want to just take it and not give it back. So most of my projects that I worked on, they became open source. I started writing about it, started contributing on Stack Overflow, and it just kept going from there. And I just kept trying to contribute more and more and in different ways that I also enjoyed myself. So the writing, for example, I get a lot out of. And then I started coming to conferences and realizing, oh, why haven't I been doing this for the last few years? But yeah, started coming here and then realized, yeah, this is for me. I was first year a visitor, and the year afterwards I was speaking. I was like, this is for me, even though I'm not technically, well, I would normally say I'm not suitable for speaking, but it's changed. Now I'm taking part.
So a quick question. Is there an Android tool, library, something that you really think more developers need to know about that you want to kind of plug here?
One that always gets me, I like sharing. It's not so much devs; it's always like the non-devs. It's like screen copy, right? So
Okay,
sharing your Android phone on your desktop for like Teams or Google Meet or whatever. Screen copy is great. You can have Android Studio, but Android Studio is not ideal for non-techies. So,
Sure.
And screen copy is like you just install a normal program. They can manage that. Plug in your
Well,
phone,
maybe.
and that's it. Most of them do. Some of them don't. But other than that, Firebase app distribution, that seems to just constantly get overlooked. Like the whole Firebase services and APK. I mean, people only use maybe Crashlytics, and they don't use like loads.
Yeah.
And they don't use it. Like
There's
the
a
app
lot.
distribution is, sorry to say this, Google, but your Play Store closing tracks are not ideal.
Yeah.
Beta tracks, whereas Firebase app distribution is so much easier.
Yeah. And it's a very Google thing to make two different products that are
Yeah,
competing
for
each
the
other.
which I don't understand.
And one's better than the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, as one of your talks is all about balance. On the balance side, what are kind of some hobbies or things that you like to do outside of development that help keep you relaxed, grounded?
Yeah, so I don't have daily hobbies because I don't have the time for it, but I have a weekly hobby. My weekly hobby is MMA, so
Okay.
cage
Yeah.
fighting.
Yep.
And we do sparring once a month as well. So that's my thing. That's a big red circle on every calendar month when I'm doing that, because that's my highlight of the month, hobby side. But yeah, that's what I do. I do mostly MMA, and I also take part in rugby.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah. So two
Great.
very physical sports
Yeah.
to help me not get so fat.
Yeah. And get some energy out, some aggression out.
Yeah, I can also. I like MMA because I can just turn off. My head just goes blank.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I'm just standing in the ring. You know, reacting.
I think that's when a hobby works best. Is if
Yeah.
it can really switch
So
your mind
really
off.
switch off, and you can just enjoy the process. Yeah.
I completely different, but I do the same with model painting. I just completely.
So you do 40K, don't
yeah,
you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just complete like I go blank, and it's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. No, it's very important to do. Well, thank you so much, James.
Thank you very much
been
too, Zach.
An absolute pleasure as always, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah, I will. Thank you very much. You too.